You were
Oh,
balding, bro?
I was balding, bro. Today's sponsor is Keeps. So if you are losing your hair,
Yo, not the Keep sponsor. Like, I get so many of those balding ads. It makes me like it's gaslighting me. Like, am I balding? If you don't stand with anime, we don't want you to listen. Okay, cool. We're live. Yo, what's up, guys? This is Nate and Miguel.
hey, Miguel here.
Okay, so this is like our pilot episode. We're gonna be calling this the transition. So basically, we want to use this as like a test run. We're thinking of a name tentatively as called Mind My Business, right?
Mind my business.
Yeah. And ideally, we just kind of want to talk about how we're both in this like in between stage of life where we were both in the corporate world and we were really hardcore in that world. And now we're kind of transitioning into more of like passion projects. Miguel is coaching, and I also was coaching for a little bit. And now I'm turning into like complete content creation. And we just thought this would be a cool chance for us to like talk with each other and hang out since we live on opposite sides of the globe. And also like we have some really cool friends that we figured we could use as a platform to get to know more about them.
Yeah. So um, initially, this was something that Nate and I wanted to, uh, as a means to stay in touch. So to give anyone listening that doesn't have full context, Nate recently moved to Taiwan. Pause and applaud for finally signing an apartment. So making big moves.
Yeah.
Um,
Finally moving out of
but
Ariel's parents' place.
this is 30 almost. So
Don't say that.
ulti- ultimately, we were talking about, hey, what's a good way for us to stay in touch because we're so used to just getting lunch with each other here and there, and this is a way for us to stay in touch. I mean, it's a 12-hour difference, so 9:30 a.m. in the morning for me, 9:30 p.m. in the evening for you. But
I'm on
when we
that
were
24
talking
hour
about,
clock actually, so it's 21:26.
oh, you're so much better than us in America. So we said that this is our means of staying in touch, and to have some kind of consistent theme here, one thing we recognize we're both going through is Nate was on that corporate grind, and when he moved to Taiwan, that is completely out the window. And he is not doing that job at all. For me, on the other hand, I've been with the same company for 10 years. I've been on that corporate grind, but I'm kind of working on establishing my side hustle. I don't like calling it that because I'm rolling my eyes for
Cringe.
anyone that's just listening.
Cringe.
Yeah, I don't like calling it that, but at the end of the day, it's supplementing my corporate job. And so there's a little bit of a difference here, but at the same time, both of us are transitioning from being a gear in the corporate machine into finding our own way to stay fulfilled in our job. And
Hmm. Yeah. So I guess first we could just talk about like our journey and how we got where we are now. Like not just speaking location wise, but just like where we are in our corporate lives. I think just like kind of preface it, I feel like I had a more sudden shift where for the past like 5 or 6 or actually 7 years, I was like really all in on actually maybe before COVID, I was really all in on the corporate climb. But Miguel, I feel like has always been kind of like had a pretty good balance of things, and maybe more so now he's shifting it into more of the coaching aspect. Also,
yeah,
sponsored
that's a
by
good way to put it.
Buzzballs. Sorry, I'm drinking a Buzzball. It's late at night, and I
Buzzballs.
texted Miguel.
Use
Yeah, Buzzballs. I think on our other podcast when we had Miguel on, we also were sponsored by Buzzballs.
yeah, yeah, sponsored by Buzzballs. Use code Meganate to save 20% off. All proceeds go to our alcoholism.
Don't be surprised if that
Um,
code doesn't
so
work.
so I would say this for both of us. We've talked about this before, but this all started before our careers. Like the career grind, the corporate grind, kind of started even when we were in school. So for me, when I was in college or even picking a major and picking a college, it was never really something that I was pursuing for myself. Just someone else telling me, hey, you're good at math and science. We're going to nudge you in the direction of pursuing an engineering career. Job, you should go to a good engineering school. And I've never really had my hand on the steering wheel other than just like, okay, sure, that sounds good. And up until that point, work. or a job was always just something that I considered as something I had to do. Um, it was a responsibility as an adult. And I think that's kind of been trained into my system well into my 20s, which is why I was like, okay, I gotta climb, gotta keep climbing, without necessarily wondering why. And I know that you had a similar kind of like, let's say, high school and college path.
Yeah, I think I mean just to like explore that more, I feel like the worst thing that ever happened to me academically was when I was 10. I got a Do you remember ISATs? Like the standardized
Oh my
testing we took
God,
in Illinois?
yeah, this is an Illinois thing, folks.
If you know, if you know, if you know, you know. But yeah, I got a letter from the governor saying I got like a perfect score on the math section when I was 10. And I think because of that, that set like a whole path of my parents' expectation for me. And I think my parents, like, because my parents were like, they were technically the first gen here, and they kind of went through the
Mm.
school system having Asian parents. And I think they initially didn't want to be like the same thing. But once they got that letter, like from then on, I feel like my path was set, or my dad really set really high expectations for me. If I got like bad grades or like, Asian bad grades, he would be like, look, I'm not pushing you further than what I think you're capable of. I just feel like you're not putting in your 100% effort. But I just think he was holding me to this standard that, I accidentally hit. And
Yeah,
because of that, it like really changed my life trajectory where I think my dad really wanted me to become a doctor. And when I was in college, that was kind of like the path I was going through. And then I had a real like existential crisis when I realized it wasn't for me. But even still, I switched into like a coding major because I knew that was going to make a lot of
math.
money and it
Yeah,
was going to be, yeah, a lot simpler. And, I pursued that pretty hard, but I feel like I don't know what the word is, like my heart wasn't really in it when I was doing that. It was still kind of like under the same like life philosophy that my parents instilled in me, like kind of maximizing this safe route that is going to make a comfortable life for myself and not necessarily like a passionate life.
yeah, I relate to that a lot actually. So do you remember when they might have done it in elementary school, where it's like answer these questions and we're gonna tell you what your perfect job was.
Yes,
And
yes.
mine was architect. It was like you're gonna be an architect. And I was like, for a good year and a half, I was like, look at these buildings, they're so fucking cool. I'm gonna make them in the future. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna be. And then it kind of pivoted to engineering because when I took the ACTs, I got a perfect score in math, and my English was meh. And since my English was meh, I was put in the category of put this Asian nerd behind a desk because they're going to be weird around people and they're going to be good at math. And so I was kind of put in that category, and I was kind of like a typical engineer guy. When, I mean, if you know me now, or if you even just if you get to know me now, I'm a very social person, and just because English score was average, it was very easy to like look at the number and say, oh, this person is propeller head. Like you just got to put them behind the computer. And so,
I feel like you're
honestly,
gonna is propeller head PC.
is it? It's I've been called that before. You know, you ever see those cartoons where
I
they
know what
have
you're
hats
talking about.
and they
Yeah.
have hey, if I'm canceled for that one, then cut that from the video. But now
Okay.
keep it
Okay.
in. But I think the next pivot in my life from architect to engineer was as I was graduating, I was like, you know what? I am not the best at class. I'm not the best at these things. I interned to do product design, and I kind of thought, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna design product. I'm gonna do like computer assisted drawings and design product, which is cool. That was cool for me. I wanted to build Gundam, like anime robots. Like, yeah, this is a version of that. But as I started interviewing for jobs, a lot of a consistent theme in my interviews was people telling me, "Oh, you should consider technical." Um, we kind of struggle to find people that have a technical background, but then can translate it into a business sense. And so I was like, all right, sure. And that's another instance where I was nudged in a direction because of how I performed at certain things, and not necessarily is because it was something I wanted to do. It was almost backwards. I would be decent at something or good at something, and then I would convince myself, oh, that's something I want to do. And so for, let's say, all through my 20s, that's pretty much been my trajectory at work. My corporate job is like, hey, Miguel, we want you to do this over here now. And I'll be like, okay, yeah, let me convince myself that that's exciting and that's how I want to spend time. And that's where, like you said, over time, I've tried to strike a balance where I'm just like, deep down, I know that's not really what I want to do. So I'm going to go spend my free time punching and kicking human beings training Muay Thai, you know? And I think
Yeah.
that's probably
I
a
guess
good
that's
transition to how we planted the seed for what we're pursuing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, which it's surprising if you're listening to this and you don't know, but Miguel it was a very accomplished amateur Muay Thai fighter, and I do Brazilian
Accomplished.
Jiu-Jitsu.
I'm 50-50.
Yeah,
Two
but
and
putting
two
yourself out
record.
there
Let's
first of
go.
all in actual fights is pretty impressive. And you won an amateur tournament, didn't you?
No,
Oh no, my
that was
God.
strongman. That was strongman. That was strongman.
You
I
did
did
win
win some.
strongman. You are Brooklyn
I have
strong.
one
You are
some.
Brooklyn strongest. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think let's we're jumping here, but I would say the reason I even started training Muay Thai was because I like to tell this story. I had, if you got the camera on, if you're watching, you could see that both Nate and I have luscious heads of hair. Um,
He copied me.
but I started training Muay Thai more seriously because I had this stress related bald spot in the back of my head from work. I was
Whoa,
overworking
I
and
didn't
my
know that.
doctor.
You were
Oh,
balding, bro.
I was balding, bro. It was like a perfect like a dollar coin. I was balding and my doctor was like, "You need to find a hobby." And I was like, I remember when he said that to me, I was like, "Damn, can you have worded that better?" Like you make it seem like all I care about is work. And at the time, retrospect, probably was kind of true. So I was trying to pick a hobby and I saw a guy with a Muay Thai t-shirt. And so I was like, "Oh, you know what? I did a kickboxing class in school. I dabbled. Wonder if I would enjoy this." And so I started training Muay Thai, and honestly, the community that I was part of was really, really encouraging. And it was also the first time I was exposed to a lot of people in very different walks of life. When training Muay Thai, I realized that the people that I was surrounding with, I was like kind of the only guy with a boring corporate job. A lot of other people were artists, um, or a lot of my coaches, that was their job. They were working for themselves. They were their brand. They were their business, and they really gave a shit about what they did, and their skin was in the game, you know. And
Isn't
I
it
learned a
sorry
lot from
not
them.
to interrupt, but isn't it funny how like when you grow up and you go to these like fighting gyms, as like I have done also, most of the guys who are killers are like fucking nerds and like artists. And
Yeah,
you know, and then in high school they were like in high school they were bullied, but then it's like those guys who played football who were seen as the tough guys, they grew up to be like fat ass desk jockeys, you know? And the
yeah, yeah,
nerds can
yeah,
like kill them.
yeah. You see them, and you're like, "Hey, let me rent a car from you." Not a diss at anyone listening. Sorry if you're
Yeah,
already.
yeah, 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 yeah. We love our desk jockeys.
So, but that was the first time I was exposed to coaches and teammates that had really been looking out for themselves and establishing their own businesses and like finding a means to pursue something they enjoy. And so I got a taste of that, and that's why I was like, you know what, maybe that'll scratch the itch. And like you said, I've had that balance with like work and hobby, work and hobby, where it kind of turned into more than just a hobby. And I know that the same goes for you. Like if someone told you, "Oh, jujitsu is a hobby," you'd probably take offense.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely there were points, and even now, it's like it's a job. Honestly, like the way I see it, and the way like I clock in my hours more than my real job,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was training 3 hours, 4 days a week. And it was
and that
good
doesn't
because
include the time off the mats when you're like thinking about it, studying it,
absolutely,
talking
absolutely.
about it.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of like a real taste at like, oh, this is me spending time on something that I want, not just necessarily, hey, your manager said, can you do this more efficiently? and you work with this team to help them out. 'Cause at the end of the day, like if I get let go from my company, no one's really gonna give a shit because there's not enough skin in the game. Just you're sustaining yourself financially, and that's where you and I differ a little. I'm sticking to the corporate job because it's a bit of a parachute for me, um, and I have a lot of flexibility. But it comes down to how do I really want to spend my time? Like, am I gonna look back and be like, "Fuck, I spent 40 hours a week for 15, 20 years doing this thing for some guy to show his numbers to stakeholders and shareholders, and that that all I want to be?" And so that's kind of that's where it started, where I started thinking twice about how I want to spend my
So it sounds like balding was like the best thing that ever happened to you.
time. Yeah. So the today's sponsor is Keeps. So if you are losing your hair,
Yo, not the Keep sponsor. Like, I get so many of those balding ads. It makes me like it's gaslighting me. Like, am I balding? Like, why the fuck does the algorithm think I need like Keeps or minoxidil?
yeah. Code Nate though. I'm not related to the Keeps thing. I got a good headache, so I want to thank my
Yo,
parents
yo.
for the genetics.
I I've always had a really high hairline, and they honestly have me thinking like, is it receding? I don't know.
I'm starting to get the Vegeta thing. So for my anime fans,
Yeah.
he's got that hard V. So I've been doing less ponytail because you can see that Vegeta line, but at the same time, he
Mm.
was the Prince of all Saiyans. But I don't want to lose any of our followers or listeners and be like, "What is this anime bullshit?" Uh,
Nah, nah, nah. If you don't stand with anime, we don't want you to listen.
okay, so well then, how about you? How did you get into jujitsu? What started opening the door towards putting yourself where you are now?
Yeah, I think well, I was in between so I just left UCLA and I quit like pre-med, and I was working on a path to like engineering, and like I had a consulting gig. But anyways, I was really into the UFC, and I heard about Ronda Rousey, and I like looked her up, and I thought she was so like badass, and I found out she did judo, but I didn't want to do judo cuz like it looked insane. So then I decided to do jujitsu, which I heard was related. And I think kind of like you, it was like one of the first things I ever did that wasn't like prescriptive. Like it wasn't something that someone told me to do. Like it's something that I looked for and I found for myself. And like, I mean, I've had hobbies that I got really into, but like this was something that like I went all in and I've done now for like the past 7 years. And I really enjoyed it.
Well, before then,
What were you gonna say? Uh-huh.
so you wrestled, and I think that there's a bit
Didn't
of like,
wrestle.
why did I think you wrestled?
My younger brother wrestled actually. He wrestled for 7 years, junior high and high school. I never
Oh, so
wrestled.
then it really is something that you were just like, let me just
Yeah,
try this. Like I
completely
want to
new.
try.
Like I was like grappling was really foreign to me. I had no idea what like jujitsu was. I thought it was just like some East Asian martial arts.
Yeah,
And then I found out it was like this like ground fighting.
I assumed that you were on that similar backstory as a lot of people. So okay, then it really is something that you're like, let me just try this. And you know what?
Yeah,
I
no,
wouldn't be surprised if a lot of your friends that knew you when you were younger were probably like, "You're doing what now? That's not who you are." I got a
I
lot of
think
that.
jujitsu has become so popular now that like they understand what it is. I am curious if like I'm curious what my social perception is. Like it's not something I think about, but like you bringing that up makes me wonder like when people like shout out to all those high school cuties you look up on Facebook, every once in a while. But I wonder if when people look me up on Instagram, they wonder, they like they're surprised at jujitsu because I think looking back, I was kind of an
High
angry
school
kid.
cuties meaning your when you were in high school together, not looking at high schoolers right now.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not trying to catch
yeah,
a case here. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's
I
exactly what I
get what you
meant.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, you look back at friends from high school, your high school crushes, and
And
you're
they
like,
they turned
"Oh,
out hot,
damn!"
or yeah, maybe
Or
they fell apart.
they're on like kid number 3, and you're like, "That could have been me. Could have been
Or
that
maybe
guy." And
they're
I'm
like
glad I'm
at
not.
that point where like maybe it went full circle, like they got diabetes and they went on Ozempic and now they're hot again. Shout out Ozempic. My dad's on that.
Oh yeah, Ozempic. Use code Skinny3 for discount. We're sponsored by everybody. But I get what you're saying. Like looking back and being like, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people are like, Miguel's doing what now? He's got long hair and he's big. He got way bigger. I'm not saying I'm big, but um, but I think uh, I actually refrain from interacting too much with people from high school because I actually don't enjoy. Oh, that's not who you are, or at least that's not. And obviously, that was half my life ago. Like, I was embarrassing. Now I'm equally embarrassing, but at least I like what I'm doing. So I think
Yeah.
go on.
I read this one thing like growing up isn't cringing at your old self. It's like accepting the cringe you get when you see your old self or something like that. It's kind of like I feel like I struggle with like I look back at my old self and I think like, "Oh, why did he do all those things that he did or why did he act that way?" But it's hard for me to have sometimes like the empathy and maturity to look back and say like, "Oh, like that version of Nathaniel was like on his path and like getting to where I am now and like be accepting of him." Like I look back sometimes with a little bit of disdain and I feel
Well,
like that's like
if you if you if you look back
we're
and
getting
you're
deep.
kind
We're
of
getting deep.
embarrassed, if yeah, we don't need to do that on the pilot. But if you look back and you don't get embarrassed, it's because you haven't really changed them. And I've changed a lot, so I'm okay with looking back and being like, that dude was didn't know where he was going.
Right, right, right. There's stages to it. Like you look back and you're just like a complete like it's just like blank, you know. You're just like, yeah, no self-reflection. And then there's like the next stage where there's self-reflection, you're embarrassed. And then there's that like Buddha stage where it's like self-reflection, a little bit of cringe, but also acceptance for that cringe.
You heard it here first. Nate and I are comparing ourselves to Buddha. Um, and
I
you
am
know
Buddha. I'm
what?
like the next Buddha, dude.
Nah, dog, I got my hair's too nice. Isn't he bald? Maybe I'm Buddha.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's back on topic. Uh, the decision to go from hobbyist to competitive athlete
Yeah.
to
I feel like
turning
for
it
me
into
that was
something
really
that
like
we can
yeah. I feel
turning it
like
into
for me
something we
that
can
really
like turn
was
into work.
like yeah, I feel like that happened. That transition really happened or started during COVID. Um, I think everybody started working from home a lot more. I was actually in between jobs at that point, so like I got a new offer at a new company, and I gave myself a month between. And at the exact same time, one of my friends from Jiu-Jitsu invited me to her place in DC, and so I was able to train like full time essentially for like a month and get like a taste of that life. And I was like I used to be addicted to jiu-jitsu, but like that's when I was like all in like that black tar heroin shit, like completely addicted to jiu-jitsu. And after that I came back. I basically broke up with my now wife, girlfriend at the
Yep,
time. We ended up going on a year and a half break because I was just so all in on jiu-jitsu, and I thought to myself, like, it was a whiplash moment where I was like, this girl's a distraction. Like, I
holding me
can't have any
back.
distractions from jiu-jitsu. She's holding me back.
Yeah,
I was a
she's your
freaking
Posh
wipeout,
Spice to
dude.
your David Beckham.
Yeah,
I just watched the
exactly.
Beckham.
But I wasn't David Beckham, dude. I was like the fourth stringer on like the C team.
Yeah, no, you weren't even pro. So
Yeah. But I mean, that really like gave me a taste of like that full-time jiu-jitsu life because I had like a tracker and I think I was at the gym like 40 hours a week at that point. And like
mm,
so I was training a shit ton and I actually loved it. And it wasn't one of those things where it's like I felt like I had to get my hours in. It was one of those things where it was like I was trying to train more because
you
I
were
loved
looking
it so
forward to
much.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's
Yeah,
that's when
yeah,
time flies.
yeah,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
enjoying
And
this.
so when companies started like having us go back in, there was no going back for me. Like I was like halfway out the door already. I mean, I think it took like a year and a half since like the return to office policy or whatever, where I like actually quit, which just happened. But like I kind of always knew that my path wasn't going to be in the office once that started.
Yeah. So that was your fork in the road. You actually did get a
Yeah,
taste of full time, and you were like, hey, can I take the risk to do this full time?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it was one of those things where like we were talking about, like I think my whole life has been very prescriptive, and it was one of those things where I really had to take a risk on myself, and it's definitely been scary like now because I'm still in that I'm still in like the early stages where I chose like chose myself, and it's
Yeah.
been hard, and there's been a lot of self doubt, but like I just feel so much more fulfilled with my day to day.
Yeah. I think like you said, I'm on a slider. You're like a hard red light, green light. I'm on a slider, and I think for me, my fork in the road was also COVID related. So for the video game fans and Skyrim nerds, COVID was my arrow to the knee. I think I had a lot of momentum at work, and it took a sudden and abrupt stop. So I was
I didn't know
in
that.
a yeah, I was in a position where I had a lot of good momentum. I was traveling internationally regularly. So I was like in Spain, France, Lisbon. I think Lisbon. I don't even remember if that was uh, Poland, India. Um, yeah, I was traveling internationally a lot, and I was actually reaching a point where I was actually able to start to design my job and pick up projects that I enjoy and that would benefit my organization. And so they trusted me to do these things. And I also am a type of person that really thrives in person interactions and networking. So I kind of learned to play
Meanwhile,
the
you work from
game.
home every day.
Now I do, yeah. And before then I was like
But pre-COVID, you went into the office.
I was going into the office a lot. I was in sales, I was seeing customers a lot, and then I started a new role where I was uh basically interacting and collaborating internationally very regularly.
Oh, I
So
didn't know that. But I mean, like when I met you in 2017, I thought were you in sales at that time also?
I was transitioning from sales into global sales.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, I actually really like I did really well in those environments because I knew how to play the game, quote unquote, and so I could tell like who's an influential decision maker, who do I need to leave an impression with, kind of be memorable. And then that ended up being like, oh, we remember Miguel. He was really opinionated. He did this really well. So that was something that I was feeding off socially. I was like, yeah, look at this value I bring. It actually validated a lot of my worth. But then when COVID hit, they basically put all travel on a freeze, and I went full time remote. And without that aspect of socialization in my work, it really reduced my job to something that is just not relating enough. Um, I'm like I have an addictive personality here and there, and I was just like, okay, there's nothing here is challenging me, and I was feeling like zero fulfillment in how I was spending time. And instead of like relying on, okay, I need to take a new job or I need to quit anything else, I was like, okay, how am I going to apply myself in my free time? And coincidentally, not too long after that, um, I actually was presented an opportunity to teach kickboxing. And so that's where I was like, you know what? I did a lot of Muay Thai training, and at the time, my Muay Thai training was kind of coming to a halt. I kind of thought I've gotten as good as I'm going to get, and I've lost the fire for. So I was like, point, I'm not going to get better, and that can be a whole topic on another day. But because of that, I was like, well, I have this. I put in the time. I developed those skills. I wonder if I can apply that in a different frame. Like, can I coach, teach others? And I had a taste of that when I cornered some other fighters. Hey, this is fun. I like this. And so when I had that opportunity, I was like, yeah, let's give it a try. I have the free time. Let's enjoy it. That was another case where I wasn't going in for money or because I didn't feel like I needed to put my hours in. It was more like, sweet, I get to learn from teaching a class, and I'm going to kind of tailor and evolve my teaching style and get that socialization that I really kind of crave. And so I
Yeah,
would really like I would thank Hit House for giving me the opportunity to teach there because that really opened up the door for my teaching others. Um, the thing is, from there, I realized I didn't want to teach Muay Thai. There's a lot of more respectable instructors out there, and it just wasn't something that I was training. So I had to kind of pivot and decide, okay, I want to coach, but what do I coach? And that kind of took its own evolution. But I've been talking.
Yeah.
Go back to you.
I I think like I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we have in common. I mean, so the social aspect. I'm not like a very social person. I'm a little bit more introverted. I do enjoy the social aspect of jujitsu, but like I think what we have in common is that like we both enjoy the skill acquisition aspects. Like for
Yeah.
me, the reason why
Yes.
jujitsu is so fun is like every day I go in and I'm trying something new, and like you're getting like very tangible like feedback of whether what you tried worked, and it's like so
Yeah.
fun and addicting. And like when I got into coding initially, it was so fun learning coding and getting really good at it. And I am really good at coding. But what you find out in the corporate environment is that like your skill level really doesn't work. It's more like a different game. And they don't really incentivize the skill acquisition aspect. So it wasn't stimulating
Right.
for me like it was
Right.
for you.
Right. Yeah. You end
Yeah.
up
So I
finding
feel like,
you find yourself working for people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and
oh, completely.
it's kind of demeaning. This actually is kind of fresh because I got up early this morning to work with the team, and this is pretty fresh. Where they're like, "Hey, can you update this graph?" And I'm like, "Dude, motherfucker, do this in Excel yourself. I'm not an Excel junkie. Like, I'm so much more than
Yo,
this."
that post meeting crankiness hits different, dude. I don't miss it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just like, why is this guy higher than me on the pyramid? This guy's a moron. And I think that still happens to me here and there. I try to just like walk it off. I think when I was younger, I was like, these people are senior directors of this, and I gotta look up to them. And now I'm like, mm, probably a regular guy that is a friend of a friend who got him this job. And I don't know, it's on some Game of Thrones shit where it's like you feel like a soldier ready to go to battle, and you don't realize that it's like a 16-year-old boy leading the path that doesn't know what the. Sometimes it kind of feels like that. So that's why I was like, you know what, I gotta kind of forge my own path a little.
Yeah, I think other people besides you and me like more commonly value those things like the social perception and like notoriety and like high status. But like personally, I just think like life is more fun when it's treated more like an adventure. Like I think that's
Yeah,
also why you and me also like skip from hobbies to hobbies a lot, or like,
yeah, yeah,
passion
yeah, yeah.
projects. And I mean like there are a couple that end up sticking because they resonate, but like that like initial phase of just like getting really good at something, like for you like getting really good at teaching kickboxing, it's just like so fun.
At the beginning, I was like, wow, let me transition my skills over, and I'm improving at coaching. And then, like you said, I was like, I got to pick up something new. And when you pick up something new, the novelty is fun at first, but then you progress so quickly because it's new. And so
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I bumped into a former Muay Thai fighter, Jim, and she was like, she actually competed in strongman. Her name's Watt, and she's a small business. We should probably interview her in the future. But she was like, Miguel, you should try strongman. And I went to a gym, picked up some stones, threw some kegs, and I was like, holy shit, this is fun. And so my coaching evolved into strength coaching and like personal training now because I was like, I'm enjoying this more. I'm learning more from this. And honestly, one of the aspects that I really enjoyed working at Hit House was these Instagram instructional videos. It was basically get a point across in 30 seconds that can help a lot of people. And I took that and played with it and turned it into like as you know if you follow me on fitness posts, here's an exercise that can benefit you if you do knee. And I know that it's working because my friend Chris even messaged me and was like, "Yo, I actually did your front foot elevated Smith lunge today because I needed a glute exercise." And I was like, "Cool, that's very
Strong
rewarding."
Chris?
Strong Chris, yeah, Chris Keeley,
Oh, lit. Lit.
Brooklyn Chris, yeah,
Brooklyn. He's got the
yeah.
most Brooklyn sounding accent, and like also the most like if you imagine Brooklyn white guy like and what he eats, that's his exact diet. like
Yeah.
red meat and
Italian food,
pasta.
low voice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Italian food, low voice.
Yeah, yeah.
I fucking love Chris.
Like what? I like what I like.
What? I like what Yeah, I fucking love Chris.
Such a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, he's
So
so cool.
that's when it comes down to it, I think both of us were just kind of like sick of being told what we should be doing, and by people that were telling us what we should be doing, we just didn't have a lot of respect for. So we're like, okay, why don't we just put ourselves to the test and figure it out? And I think that's why
You know,
we're
Miguel, I'm
enjoying.
surprised.
Go ahead.
I'm surprised no one ever like recommended strongman to you before. Because if anyone's ever met Miguel, he has a very prominent brow ridge. You know, like I wouldn't be surprised if you have like an above average Neanderthal like percentage in your DNA,
Okay.
and just like it just comes naturally too. I mean, me too. My brow ridge is also prominent.
Yeah, we got that Taylor Lautner eyebrow, like that bridge.
No, we got that Geico commercial eyebrow. You know what I'm talking about?
I'll look
That's a
it up later.
throwback.
I'll look it up
Okay.
later. Yeah, so I that's the journey, and now we're that's the journey to lead up to the beginning of what this is. And so I think the reason we're doing this, at least the reason I'm doing this, is I think oftentimes people when they take on a new challenge, they keep it to themselves. They're afraid to share it with others because it's not uncommon when you're around a family dinner table and some cousin or some fucking boyfriend is like, "You're doing what now?" Oh, okay, let me know how that goes. And it just kind of like uh pulls the wind out from your sails when you're super enthusiastic about something and someone just brushes it aside because they want to play it safe and they look at you weird if you don't play it. And so
Yeah, that totally sucks. I
yeah,
was actually like at a meetup with Ariel and in Taiwan, and she took me to this like event for documentary filmmakers, and they had us all introduce ourselves. And one was like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing like child crimes in Thailand," and one guy's like, "My," and you know, Ariel, she's doing like a documentary on this guy who was kidnapped in China, and then I was like, "I am an aspiring YouTuber."
and yeah,
It was
you
just so awkward, dude.
and you yeah, it's we're hesitant to share the risks we're taking. But then you hear people all over social media that love being like, "Oh, here's my success story. I'm the fucking greatest. You can be like me if you just take the risk and do this." And I think what we're trying to do is this middle ground of that. We don't have, or hopefully, something that we look back and say, "Yeah, this was a great decision." And but right now we're amidst our journey, and the whole point of us starting this podcast, mind my business, working, is to chronicle that journey.
Incorporated trademark.
Yeah, but we want to document it, and also for me, I want to
Yeah,
put myself
yeah.
out there for um, constructive criticism because when I first started lifting, I was posting on Instagram, and people that I respected would say, "Try this on your deadlift, engage your lats, or pull the bar against you like you want to bend it in half." And that advice significantly improved my technique and allowed me to train uh, more safely. And it didn't come with like not deep enough, squat doesn't count, you're a bitch. It was more like, hey, I'm getting feedback from people that put the time in to watch or listen and say, hey, here's some advice. Um, and I think this is an opportunity for us to put ourselves out there again to continue to get that kind of feedback. I've even recently had someone, he's a physical therapist, um, respond to one of my Instagram stories or Instagram posts saying, "Hey, technically, this wording that you use is not. It's kind of outdated in the medical field." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. I respect that, and I'm going to adapt." Just so long as it doesn't come with this like entitled approach where it's like, "Ugh, look at you trying something new," which I really haven't experienced much of. So by coming out here and saying, "Yeah, we're starting a podcast," I'm not really like shy to share that you and I are doing this, even though a ton of dudes in their 30s are podcasts. Why should you me? Um, I was talking to a friend, our friend Jeremy, and he said there's a lot of podcasts and content where people that you don't know talking about how great they are. And he was like, he would love to hear from people that he does know that are taking risks because it is more likely that he would take a similar risk. And he's another person I'd love to have as a guest because he's taken a risk and left his corporate job. So
Yeah.
this is just
I
our
think
means of
like
like putting ourselves out there for that constructive criticism.
yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of podcasts out there of guys who've like already made it. So it's like cool, like let's say like 5 years from now, if we're still doing this, to see where we are now versus like who we're gonna be then. And like that'd be pretty cool. Like maybe we fail, or maybe we're still doing this podcast and only like 20 people and our moms are listening, you know?
Hi,
Or
mom.
maybe like yeah. Or maybe I mean my old podcast, my mom listens to almost every episode. So shout out to Diana Cho. Um I think though I agree, like it's just cool that we're documenting this and like putting ourselves out there, because I have been like trying this thing recently where like I just tell people what I'm trying to do. I heard that like you can increase your surface area for luck by just like reaching out in your community, you
I've
know?
heard that too.
And by just like putting out, yeah, if we just put out that we're like doing this, that I'm trying to be an aspiring YouTuber, I agree. Like I'm hoping people will reach out and offer their help, or they know somebody that knows somebody that can help. And like I think something we kind of lost in like the past few generations is like community. And like it'd be really cool if we can like build our own little community around this, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm really looking forward to having some guests on here. Um, so I mentioned this before, but there's this sociologist from Stanford that wrote on the topic of weak ties. And you might be asking, what's a weak tie? A weak tie is like a casual acquaintance, someone that you see regularly at the gym because you come at the same
Is like a
time.
hinge hookup a weak tie?
You still talk? It depends, I guess.
No, I'm married. I'm married. I'm married.
So I mean, if it could be. I wouldn't be surprised if you can uh, kind of
No, I
network
mean we
from
have
that.
so many like I know we do have so many weak ties though. Like if I think I said I'm married, but I'm sure like a few of the people I've hooked up with on like the dating apps still probably follow me on Instagram. It's like some kind of parasocial relationship.
Yeah. So the thing about weak ties is that the sociologist basically stated that um, it's more likely that these weak ties, these casual acquaintances, will offer more access to new information than your closest friends. Nate and I, we've already had multiple lunches and dinners where we talk about kind of stuff. So there's only so much new stuff we can present to each other. Yes, we're both on our journey and we can learn from mistakes that he made or I'm making. But one of our goals in our future calls, and we've already started putting a list down, but if you're listening and you're interested, then obviously reach out. But our goals are to also learn from
Don't reach
other
out. We
people.
have there's an entire application process. We don't accept just anybody. Send us a
Oh,
CV,
right,
full
right, right.
resume. Yeah, we want your
Or
elevator
or
pitch.
or DM me, and then we'll plan the elevator pitch for Nate
Yo,
together.
not Miguel trying to farm DMs. Miguel
So
secretly like, yeah, DM me only if you're a cute girl.
cute girls or people that can help me become insta famous. Tell me what I need to do. But no,
I
at
think
the
you
end of
have
the
to be a
day,
cute girl to be insta famous.
let's break that. Let's break that glass ceiling. Is that what that is? That's the glass ceiling, right? This next episode,
It's a
let's
reverse
change the
glass
name
ceiling.
for
Yeah,
this one.
exactly.
This one's called the glass ceiling.
Yeah,
No, anyway,
reverse glass ceiling.
the point I was trying to get at is, um, I think we want to expand from just like Nate jujitsu coaching, Miguel fitness coaching. Like we're not gonna stay limited to that. So we want to speak to small business owners, people that have taken similar, people with unusual career journeys, because I do have a lot of close friends and coworkers that have gone down the career path and they love their jobs. They're very happy. They've had opportunities to live in France. Nikesh came back a couple of years ago from living. Um, and I have a friend that's there now, and they're thriving. And I'm not saying that that path is better or worse than mine. It's more like you and I are just trying to come to terms with how we want to spend our time instead of just hours. So,
Yeah, I've been
and if
told
my
many
boss is
times like I have
listening,
very
I just so you know, I do respect you. It's not you personally. This is just so I can keep my job. This is a disclaimer. So if my boss is listening, I'm not trying to quit. Um, like I
what
said,
the fuck? Does your boss follow you on Instagram?
I don't know, man. What if we get so big? And they're like, "Oh my God, who is this? This is Miguel. Always talking about how he hates his job."
That's true. Do you ever go on a YouTuber you follow and just like out of curiosity look at their first video they ever uploaded?
No,
Oh, me neither.
I guess I will now.
No, but I mean, I agree with that sentiment. Like, I think people have told me I have very strong opinions, and I can come across as like being a little, what's the word, like all or nothing with the way I see life. But I think for you and me, this is just kind of like the way that we are able to like live with ourselves. Like, I'm not comfortable or fulfilled working like a corporate job, um, and it's not something like I can like tolerate. And so that's kind of like why I had to search for an alternative lifestyle.
Right. And
Not me calling, yeah, not me calling like becoming a content creator an alternative lifestyle.
yeah, that's like the top growing profession right now, isn't it? So, I
Maybe for
think
cute girls.
for cute girls only, yeah. Hey, maybe we. I mean, if I shave and we got the long hair, I could be cute. Anyway, um, let's cut that out.
No. It's raw. We do it raw.
Jesus. Okay, so in terms of
No, not like that.
well, I guess the future. This is the pilot, and here we are trying to establish our flow. It's also just Miguel and Nate catching. For me, this is there's intrinsic value because like we used to. But the things we want to dive into in the coming months are more about um like what really sparked the side hustle. I mean, yeah, we glimpsed into it, but I think we can spend a little more time exactly why. I also think it would be important for us to follow your transition and move to Taiwan. I think your journey is really exciting to follow. I mean, shit, you just signed your apartment. A lot of people our age now buying houses in the suburbs. You're very unusual. But I think it's also an opportunity
Yo,
for
was that like a diss?
why is that a
Yo, renting.
diss?
You can still rent. I'm not. I'm
I'm
29. I'm
renting.
not 30
I'm
yet. I can still
renting.
be renting.
I'm renting. I can't afford to buy
No, I'm
in New
kidding.
York. But I think it's also a good
Yeah,
opportunity for us to share like what we learned from our move to New York because we're not New Yorkers, not native New York.
yeah, yeah.
So what are things that
Mm.
we learned that we
And we
could have
both had
done
like
better?
similar, but also, yeah, we had similar, but also like kind of different transitions to New York. Also,
Yeah, I also want to spend some time talking about quote unquote corporate culture and how they love talking about how they're a family, but then
oh,
cutthroat,
bro.
they'll lay you off.
Yo,
They don't
shove a
give a
finger down my
shit.
throat and make me vomit, dude. No,
Yeah.
no. Oh, yeah, I would love to talk about that and just diss it. I'm worried though that'll alienate so many viewers.
No, we won't. We don't have to stay super negative, but just some fun storytelling and takeaways. But for me, I think
Sure.
the thing I'm looking forward to the most, and this is where we need help spread the word, is people that might be in similar journeys, maybe way ahead of us, or interested in doing something similar. We'd love to have them on and just pick their brain because it's those weaker ties, those weak ties, those acquaintances that introduce new information. And it's just you're just listening to me and Nate over and over and over again. Nate's got a good voice. That's making up
Thank
for
you.
the. I'm making up for the
No,
calling you
no,
out
no,
on ranting.
no. You're good. You're good. Well, I mean, like we keeping it in this episode. We were talking about our side hustles and stuff. What's like end game for you? Are you still gonna do you think you'll always be half in, half out? Like where
That's a good
is
question.
maybe like a realistic projection, but then also like a ideal projection? What is end game for you?
That's 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 a question that Maria, my wife, always asks. She's always the first to be like, okay, so how many clients do you need to replace your job? Because you would enjoy doing it.
Is that the goal?
I it might be. Like
All right, so
I've even
Miguel's
told my
boss
boss.
for the next like 10 minutes, close your ears.
So I've told my boss. She doesn't have to close her ears because in my performance review, she asked, "Where do I see myself in 3 years?"
Oh,
And I told her
wait, did
I
you say
see
she?
myself.
Cuz how sexist am I? I assumed it was a guy.
No, she's great. She's Colombian. And she's helping me. But she, during my performance review, asked me where I see myself in years, and I told her, um, fucking off in Caribbean, in a beach house with some dogs. She's like, okay, I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that, but she does know that like at the end of the day, I am kind of trying to like wriggle my cog out of the corporate engine a little bit. Um, I think end game would be potentially owning a small gym in the Caribbean and maintaining like my my coaching status, either both in person and or virtually, because that's pretty scalable.
What about when you say the Caribbean, what about Puerto Rico? Like Logan Paul lives there. We've been there like 2 or 3
Puerto
times.
Rico, somewhat, yeah, or somewhat
Puerto
just
Rico.
Puerto Rico. It kind of also comes with timing. I mean, like you left New York, and I think a lot of my friends are getting engaged. And if we reach a point where most of my closest friends have left New York, then it's time. It would be time for me to kind of
Because
do my
cost
own
of
thing.
living is so much cheaper in those countries. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
sure you're actually not that far.
Yeah, it would be a lot more sustainable to do that full time, not living in.
Yeah,
What
100%.
about you? That's long term. That's long term for me. Right now, I'm
Wait, but it's really not when you think about it, because like you and Maria both are work remotely, and cost of living is cheaper there, and you already have a client base that could probably support a lifestyle in Puerto Rico. You think that's far away? Like, what's holding you back? Is it the friends? Is it the community?
I would say the friends are not holding me back. I would say if something's holding me back, it's the corporate parachute. Like, okay, if I don't try that hard and if I fail, fine, because I'm sustained by my corporate job. It's a pro and a con. It's a parachute that will prevent me from falling, but if I'm sprinting forward, it's also a parachute that's holding me back from going anywhere. So
That's a really good metaphor.
yeah. So for you, being afraid, like you said, like you're scared sometimes, it's also kind of pushing you to work hard. I would say that's what's holding. But in terms of goal, yeah, sure, maybe 3 years isn't crazy. I would love to look back at this and be like, hey, remember when Nate said, "Do you ever watch the first episode? Why don't I do that?" And who would have thought? Wow. Like I would love to have that prescience, Dune style. But yeah,
Whenever I hear prescience, I immediately think Dune.
because no one uses that word in real life. So I
Frank
would,
Herbert did, okay?
yeah, he did. So that's goal. That's my goal. What about yours? I think you have more
Yeah,
short term goals that you gotta hit than me.
yeah, I'm definitely more focused on like the short to medium goals. Like you mentioned skin in the game. I feel like because I quit my job right now, I have so much skin in the game, and I'm really just hustling like the Instagram side, the YouTube side, and now this podcast, and like I'm really just trying to hit it from all ends.
Hmm.
And it's like a lot of work. It's actually more work now than it was doing the corporate job, but it's very fulfilling. Um, I don't know. I don't really know if there's an end game. Like for me, the way I see it is just like I'm taking a chance on myself for the next couple of years. If it works out, great. And I don't know, catch me on like the next I don't know, on the trending page or something. But if not, then I can always go back to software engineering or finding the next venture. Maybe I'll become like a day trader or something. I don't know, dude.
Yeah, I think it, it's good that we have the ability to revert back to the corporate skills. Like, if I'm completely screwed, I know I can self to me if I needed to, I like let go or something. But I think I would like to think that if I was in that case, I would take a similar step as you and be like, all right, do a year, 6 months, trying something else. And this is just a means for anybody listening that's going through something like, hey, that happened to me. This is what I did. This is what worked. This is what didn't work. Um, that's all I hope out of this.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, like I don't feel great. Like I'm living off savings now. I don't have an income. Like I don't recommend anyone doing it the way I did. Like when I listen to interviews of like the top guys, they always at least like were monetized on YouTube. I have like 40 subscribers. I think I made like 4 videos. I really like took a huge leap of faith on this one. Um, yeah, so yeah, it doesn't feel great. But I don't know. I just feel fulfilled, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and even though you're in Taiwan without me, and I'm not trying to sound cheesy, but this is also our attempt to not be alone. I kind of regret
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
that because
yeah.
it
No, yeah.
comes off very cheesy, but at the same time, like,
Nah, 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 nah. I appreciate that. Like, I think this will be a really good like check in and like sounding board where like we can bounce ideas off each other and just catch up. Which takes me to our surprise segment. I didn't tell Miguel about this, but it's I don't know. Working title is called Nate and Miguel Just Catch Up. Woo! I'll edit in some music here, maybe or maybe not.
okay,
So Miguel, how was your week? How was your week since the last time we talked?
here's the big thing for the week. Tonight, I'm hosting a dinner uh for my company, the one I just softly bashed. It's a good company, but corporate life is not. But anyway, one of the things I do to keep myself fulfilled at work is I'm part of the Asian Professionals Network, and October is Filipino Heritage Month. So I'm hosting a Kamayan meal at a Filipino restaurant in East Village where all the food is placed on the table on a banana leaf and everybody eats with their hands. And company's paying for it. So
Are you going to Maharlika?
um no, that I think that place is closed. Um
Uh,
no, I'm going to Mama Fina's. I'm going to Mama Fina's and
oh, wait, that's on the same
yeah,
street, isn't it?
it is. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Same area.
Uh,
So going there, eating
that sounds
Filipino
so fun.
food, and it will be fun. Yeah. And beforehand, I'm gonna present a brief history of the Philippines, colonization, a lot of colonization, um, Filipino historic figures, Manny Pacquiao. It's gonna be fun. That's been what's taking up my time. Because on Friday, after all of that, I can take a deep breath, and Maria and I are going to Antigua for 2 weeks, going to the
Woo!
Caribbean to
Well
fuck
earned
off and
vacation.
chill on the beach. Yeah,
Woo!
exactly. So there's
Okay.
my end. There's
Second
us
question,
catching up.
follow up. One more question. What is the hardest you laughed this past week?
Hardest I laughed. Um,
Doesn't have to be a good one, just any laugh you had this week that you remember.
I think I was walking to the post office and it was Columbus Day. I didn't know it was Columbus Day, and I saw this guy pulling the post office door, and he's just like,
Yo,
Jerry.
that's not pulling the post office door.
He's whatever. He's pulling the post office door, and he's just like gets frustrated. And I'm walking in the direction. I'm looking at him, and he goes, "Jerry, what day is Columbus Day? Fuck, today's Columbus Day. The post office is fucking closed." And I was watching him, and I was like, "Oh man, I walked a mile to get here. I walked for like 15, 20
Oh,
minutes
you
to get
also
here.
were going to the post
I
office.
was going to the post office and he was yelling, and I like looked at him. I was like, "Post office is closed." He's like, "Post office is fucking closed. Happy Columbus Day." I couldn't stop laughing. It's those random interactions in New York City that I absolutely love. 'Cause I was just like, I'm never gonna see that guy again, but that was like the funniest I've laughed.
Yo, that's so funny. That's so good.
Yeah. Now you got to answer.
My week was good. Like Miguel said, I just signed an apartment, so we're finally moving out of Ariel's parents' place, which is great.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
that's a big event. And then the hardest I laughed was probably like last night or 2 nights ago. I don't know if any of you guys know like old Asian parents, especially the dads, when they like have just like a lot of phlegm
Uh,
in the back of their throat and they do an aggressive.
they don't give a shit, dude.
But like it was it was just 1 a.m. and me and Ariel were lying in bed and then we hear go and I was laughing and I was laughing so hard and Ariel was like, "Are you laughing at my dad?" Which made it even funnier. Oh, it's
Dude,
so funny.
I get that. I get that because I share a wall with old old Chinese grandparents that have lived in this building for decades, and I will hear first thing in the morning like, like, all
Oh
right, it's
no.
time to get out of bed. It's time to start my workday. All right,
Okay, that's great. I think that's a good time to end it.
yeah,
We haven't had like a, yeah, I don't know how we're gonna end these. Maybe we just go like bye.
you want to just go like bye?
Yeah,
All
okay,
right,
bye.
well, bye.